All right, hi everybody. Welcome again to another episode of the Lucas podcast. All right, on today's session, we are actually going to be speaking about ECA, which is Extracurricular Activity, and how it will benefit you as a student as well as when you come out in your working life. So today we are very fortunate, we are very honored to actually have our guest today. Our guest is actually Rachel Scully. She's actually working as a recruiter from the Boston Consulting Group. So without further ado, I think let's introduce Rachel.
Thanks, Lucas. Hi, everyone. My name is Rachel. I've been a campus recruiter for about 2.5, 3 years now. So yeah, like what Mr. Lucas said, I'm based in Kuala Lumpur, working in a consulting industry, which is Boston Consulting Group. I'll pass it over to Jade.
Okay, hi everyone. Happy to be here again on another episode of the Lucas podcast. If you have not, please comment, like, and subscribe to the channel. Anyway, Jade here. Yes. Anyway, Jade here. I'm a strategy analyst with Accenture Strategy in Malaysia. And this is now my second time speaking on this podcast. So without further ado, let me hand it on to Francine.
Hi everyone, my name is Francine and it's me again. This is my second time since Jade joining Mr. Lucas podcast, and I am now working as a marketing manager in an abrasive company based in Johor Bahru. And now I will introduce you our another guest, Vignesh.
Oh, had some trouble with my mic a little bit. But anyways, yeah. Hi everyone, it's Vic. I'm an assistant professor at a university in Malaysia, an international university. So I do my teaching and research as well in the discipline of chemical engineering. All right. So I was also part of the group that discussed a lot of interesting topics in the previous episode. So glad to be here as well. All right.
Thank you everyone for being here again today for another episode. So yeah, today we actually going to be speaking about what is ECA first, right? We're going to introduce to you guys what is ECA all about in our definition, right? And after we're going to move on to talk about the benefits of ECA in personal development and how it will benefit you in your working life. And the next part, we're going to be also talking about what ECA you should actually join. Right, so hopefully by the end of this session, you have some idea on what to actually join if you have not, right? So it'd be great to actually stay tuned with us until the end of the session today. So let's get started now, right? So Jade, how do we define ECA here? How do we define ECA? Because to me, ECA is such a wide thing, right? A lot of students knows that extracurricular activity is basically just doing sports, you know, like you take up a badminton club, for example, or a futsal club back in school, or you can actually join what we call this uniform body, Satuan Pelan Sabit Merah. I was actually a part of it last time, right? And also there was actually clubs like science clubs and, you know, being prefect, being a librarian. Those are the extracurricular activity that as a student, okay, those are the only activities I think we are exposed to. But I think it's actually wider than that, right, Jade? Please go ahead.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Mr. Lucas. Yeah. So it's very good that we're addressing this now at the very start before we deep dive into how, what kind of ECAs you should join, what kind of benefits you'll derive from it. Because actually, personally for me, I view extracurricular activities as something outside of your core responsibilities. So for example, right, if you're a student and your job is to study and to do well in your A levels or O levels, or if you're in uni, to do well in your classes, to get your, you know, whatever first class, second class, your CGPA and whatnot. As long as you're doing things outside of taking classes, of doing your homework, that is considered ECA to me. So for example, like in high school, your ECA could be your uniform bodies, could be your arts and science clubs, could be doing community service even. But if you move on to college, move on to university, it could be slightly different. Some people do research with their professors, with their lecturers, or with their associate professors. That to me is considered a form of ECA as well, because you're essentially, you know, expanding your horizon, expanding your knowledge outside of just your core classes. So that to me is ECA.
All right. So that's a good thing that you actually help us to inform us now. Actually, that actually more than what it is actually perceived as a lot of students perceive it as, isn't it? Right? Because it can really be like some even charity work, right? The students actually take part. It can be like professional bodies where students actually take up or be a member is. I think Vignesh can actually talk about how professional bodies, what kind of professional bodies that are actually available around, and why we should actually join them later on when we talk about the benefits of ECA. So yeah, thanks Jade for your explanation on what is the extracurricular activities that we're going to be describing today. And yeah, let's move on straight to look at the benefits of ECA. I think Rachel can share some likes over here, right? Because I think you hire lots of graduates, right, throughout the years, right? So maybe you can actually share some experiences with us about what are the benefits that extracurricular activities actually does in self-development, as well as how will it actually benefit the working life after that.
Yeah, sure. Maybe I'll start off with sharing a personal experience first in terms of like being involved in ECA back in my university days. I feel like joining, because back in my university days, I joined a lot of like student associations, and this actually helped in terms of opening up different doors to meeting a lot of new people. So this is where actually I got to land myself in a very good internship with Accenture, and then yeah, so that led me here to where I am today. So I am very thankful of stepping out of my comfort zone, to be honest, to join all these different student associations, because back then my peers and my friends were not that into joining ECAs. They are more of the study geeks. Yeah, so they had better grades than me. Right. And in terms of how does it convert into, how does a recruiter see it, right? Benefits of of ECA. I would say that because the competition is very tough right now in the job market, right? So you can see a lot of first class graduates out there. And what do you have that makes you outshine your peers? And your peers doesn't need to be people from only your university. There are like tens and thousands of people graduating around the year. There are people from studying abroad that want to come in and explore into the Malaysian market. So you're competing with a lot of people. So one thing I would say that catches a recruiter's eye, number one, is of course their grades. So besides having good grades, you need to have very strong extracurricular activity involvement, I would say. This also kind of gives a recruiter, because like when you apply for a job application, you only send in your CV, your resume, and also a cover letter. A recruiter will only be interested with that piece of paper and then only call you up and to better understand yourself. So you will need to impress that recruiter with just a piece of paper and just words, you know. So from that piece of paper, we actually get to see your strength. So your number one strength, of course, hard skills would be your knowledge from your education, which is academic CGPA, your grades, right? Second thing would be a strength in terms of soft skills. So let's say if you're a very active member in debate clubs or Toastmasters, it shows that you have a very good presentation skills or communication skills. Or even let's say if I want to pull the strings longer, I can even say negotiation skills if it's for a sales job. Right. And then if it also shows passion. So we want someone who is not only very good in terms of academics, very good in terms of being like, let's say, talking only, but we want to see this person as being very well-rounded. So to see like this person has his own passion, he joins like hiking communities or maybe even volunteering societies. So this does add a point also to this person. And last but not least, I would say from my end, it shows determination when I see some candidates or some students who have at least a few years or at least a full year of involvement with a certain society. Because that kind of shows that you were not there just for an event and then you leave, or because you stuck it through the whole year, and then you probably get to see like how did the society or how did the student association manage themselves, manage events, people management, yeah, things like that. I hope that answered the question in terms of how recruiters actually, from my end, at least, how we actually screen CVs and how can students actually outshine their peers.
That's a very good insight over there. Thank you, Rachel, for very, very detailed insight on what the recruiters are actually looking for whenever they're actually hiring. Very, very important. So that's why I feel that we were very lucky to actually have you here today, right? So yeah, very important to actually get involved in some kind of activity, because we need this to be an avenue for students to express themselves. Because a lot of times we are so focused on just study, but there are very few opportunity out there actually, right, for students to actually express themselves. And if you don't take up this opportunity, you may actually end up losing one key elements in development to yourself in order to prepare yourself well for the actual working world, right, Jade?
Yes. So actually, I just have another short story to share. So yesterday, I actually had a call. One of the penultimate year students messaged me on LinkedIn and asked, Jade, I'm interested in joining Accenture. Can I have a short chat with you to find out more about what it is? And so I had a short conversation with him. And I basically, I kind of acted like a recruiter. I asked him, what have you done? What experience you have? Why are you interested in consulting? Things like this. And from his stories, and from the experiences he shared, from every single experience he shared, I could kind of derive something. So just to connect back to the point that Rachel shared earlier, right? Every single activity, every single ECA participation you have, it shows a part of you as an individual, and it's something very important for you to show. It's not just to your future recruiter. It's not just to your recruiter. It's not just to your future employer, but it's also to like friends around you, how you can potentially expand your network, because it's about what you have done as a person. What are the things you have done that mold you into who you are as a person today? And personally, I feel like ECA is a very good avenue for you to grow yourself in terms of the multiple different areas, the different skills that you want, the different like aspects of life that you can potentially get. Like ECAs, bring a lot of value, for personal growth. So personally, from my college experience and high school and college experience, I think the most notable one for me, and the one that really made me learn the most, would be organizing a run that had, I think, over 800 people. We had over 800 participants, and we managed to raise around 24,000 ringgit. So back then, for me, that was huge money. At 18 years old, no, sorry, at 20 years old, I did that. Raising 24,000, I was like, wow, I never imagined myself to do that. But it was only possible because it required a group of people coming together, me having, leading a team of people, knowing exactly what we wanted to do, having a clear goal, knowing how to work together as a group to achieve that target. Those were the takeaways, right? And then, in organizing to make that event a success, there were many different things that had to come into place together. Working with people, collaboration, that was such a key thing. Because if I hadn't, if that small team of 15 people didn't come together, manage the different areas and aspects of that event, something would have fallen apart. And then there were also making sure every single thing would go well, attention to detail. That was something that really trained me, because I had to think of the different risk areas, how, what are the details that could have made things fall apart, and try to preempt it, have some mitigation steps before they actually happen. So things like that. Okay, before I take out too much time, let me pass it on to the next person to share a bit more of their ECAs. I'll add on a bit more after.
Vignesh, you had a lot of stories for you to share too, right?
For me, it was mostly in my university days where I had most of my exposure in ECA activities. But this is more focused towards like the professional body. So, I mean, I'm a chemical engineer by training. So we have a lot of chemical engineering societies, and well, in different regions of the world anyway, and they all have their own societies as well. So, I mean, one of the benefits, of course, I think our fellow panelists have already discussed them, but I would like to link them together as well. I think the key point mentioned by Rachel is that it's basically the skills that we get out of those experiences is what the recruiter is looking for. The experience from there, the skills that we get from there. And exactly like what Jade said, at the end of the day, it's the transferable skills, the soft skills, that we get from it. Because technical skills, you are already working on that when you're studying. And I would say that why I mentioned about my university days is because even though in my pre-university or my college days, I was involved in extracurricular activities, but those are more like my trial and error moments, just try something out, see which one I liked, which one I would like to stick with, and it was also more of a reflective experience, trying to figure out what are the stuff that I was lacking, what are the stuff that I felt like, okay, I can work on, and then I go look for those opportunities, so that's actually something I would say is a very good point to share in that sense. You need to know what you're good at, and you need to know what you need to work on, and going for this extracurricular activities, regardless of what shape or form, it helps you build that a little bit further, because at the end of the day, as I mentioned, it's the transferable skills lah. Apart from the technical skills or the technical knowledge, the soft skills is very important. So this is a good opportunity to build that, try things out. If you don't like it, move on to the next one and then start building it from there lah. Yeah.
Which is very true, Vignesh, because one should not actually just stop doing ECA activity or start doing any ECA activity at any point in time. I mean, you can actually start ECA any activity at any point in time in your study, your life. So what happened is that I was basically a nerd back then when I was in high school. I wasn't very active at all. I only started taking up activity once I actually started my PU course, and then after that I was very active back in my university days. So you shouldn't really be a thing to limit yourself. You can start ECA any activity at any point in time in your life. So that should not actually limit yourself, and I shouldn't be limiting yourself over there. So any point in time you feel that you want to take up some extracurricular activities, anything at all that you have passion towards it, or you maybe want to pick up a club or society or even sports that you want to actually learn up, you can always do so at any point in your life. So in this case, we are not just limiting it to just the time where you're actually studying. Even now, I think when we're working itself, you can also still pick up, certain clubs for you to join. You can join, like, for example, bowling club, for example, right now, right? So yeah, there are also other things that you can actually pick up besides the traditional club, societies, and sports over here. So I think this is when Francine can actually share some light on this charity work that she has actually done and how it has actually helped her to bring out the best in her, in her studies, as well as also it brings a lot of qualities in her that I can see as a person right now. So Francine, go ahead.
I'm actually so excited to share this experience because I feel like, like a lot of times when people talk about ECA, the first thing that crosses their mind is like sports or like clubs or like something that has to contribute to their CV or whatnot, but volunteering is something that very rare that people would have it as a first option. But to start with, let me tell you a very short story that actually when I was younger, even when I started my college, I was still a very, very shy person. I don't know if you guys can tell it now, but then back then, I was just so scared to speak up because I would always doubt myself. And I would always feel like I am insufficient in comparison to my peers. But I had my turning point because since young, I was always someone that I always get sick very easily. And then there's one point where I got really ill. Then I asked myself Francine, if you were to go now, do you think you are ready? Then my answer was, I am very happy because I've been receiving so much love from people around me, but have I really done enough to give back? And my answer was no. And that's when I realized that volunteering is something that I want to do. Then I had my first exposure when I was in college. I saw the opportunity for me to actually sign up to help kids from orphans, from orphanage, and then I signed up for it. So I actually had my first volunteering experience since 2015, and even until now, I'm still doing it. I will just share a little bit more about the recent one, which was, I think, in 2019. I signed up for a volunteering program that was in Fiji. For you guys who don't know where Fiji is, it's in the middle of New Zealand and Australia. I always thought that Fiji is in Japan just because of the Fuji mountain, but it is in the middle of New Zealand and Australia. And the reason why I signed up for that was because I just finished my year-long internship from my placement. And then I thought, I want to do something that I wouldn't be able to do once I start working. For example, if you start working, and it will be really, really hard to actually take a month off, travel somewhere, and then just stay there and then just completely switch off from the real world. And I thought that if I don't do it now, I don't think I can ever get a chance to do it. that's why I just signed up for it. I didn't even tell my parents. I only told them after I actually signed the consent paper. And then like when I'm about to pay, I asked, Mommy, I need some money to go for this trip. Can I go? But I'm really lucky that they say yes, because they knew that from the very beginning, I really like doing volunteering work. So I backpacked, I went there alone without knowing anyone before. And I actually stayed with, I think, 20 other people. And these 20 people, they are all British, and I was the only Asians there. And I think I was considered quite lucky because before that, I studied in the UK. So I was already exposed to the culture difference, and I was already adapted to it. But with that being said, there's also a slight difficulties because everyone comes from different background, different culture. So the way that you see things, of course, it is going to be very different. But it builds you a ground to actually train yourself to be more open-minded and to actually accept other people's perspective. And then that's where you will learn. And we stayed there for a month. So our schedule go by every morning, we will go to school to teach kids. And then in the afternoon, we will plan activities for them. And then in late evening, we come back home. At night, we will actually spend time with the villagers. And then we stayed together with the villagers. We had to learn their culture. We have to learn how to speak their language. So I can actually like have very, very basic Fijian conversation now. And it was just so fun. Like throughout this whole month, because Fiji, it was actually quite a rural place, I didn't get any phone connection. I was completely switched off from the outside world for one whole month. No internet, no social media, no TV. But you know what's more surprising? People around there, everyone, they are so happy. That's when I realized, this is what the true happiness means. Because looking back, I think the reason why when I was younger, I felt so shy, so like not confident, was because I feel that I was insufficient. But when you actually start doing volunteering work, you start to appreciate things you have around you so much more that you feel that you have so much, and you are not insufficient, because what you have is a lot. And that's when it's the seed of the beginning where you will only shine brighter and be more confident. And not only that, I also learned a lot of leadership skills, because believe it or not, when you actually come out in the real working world, you are not restricted to what you study only. You wouldn't really do things based on your field of study, but you actually do things based on your life experience and also the soft skills you have. What my parents always told me was, like your grades, they're only a key to open up the door. But what paved the road afterwards was actually your life experiences, the perspective, and also your values. So I think by doing volunteering, it actually helps with that aspect a lot. Yeah.
Very inspiring story, Francine. Thank you, Mr. Lim and Mrs. Lim, too, for actually giving very good advice to Francine, so she can actually share with all of us today as well, right? Thank you,
I
Mr.
have to tell my parents this. They'll be so happy.
Yeah. That's the one thing that I think we would love to hear from parents, because nowadays that a lot of parents are just focused on academics. Again, but of course, we need to understand that kids need to develop the way they are. We need to be exposed to all these kind of things in order for them to grow up. I think it's a very valuable piece of advice that I actually gave you. Thank you, Francine, for sharing with us.
I also have to add on this, that like a lot of people feel that in order to do an ECA that they want to do, they have to have prior experience that's related to that particular thing, I'm not too sure about sports or arts. Like maybe you might need a little bit experience, but for volunteering, all you need is a heart to serve. And even if when it comes to sports or arts, you don't have to feel shy if you don't know about anything, because if you don't start now, when are you going to start? Yeah.
True. Just like what Vignesh mentioned just now, right? You have to actually start somewhere. So you actually try out a lot of things at the beginning part of your life, right? See which one you actually like, and then you pick that up and just expand on it, right, Vignesh?
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, I'll extend the point that Francine made. Actually, all these ECAs in a way are voluntary to an extent. So it doesn't mean that someone is holding you like accountable, like, oh, if you didn't do this, that's the end of it. No. I mean, it's meant to be a voluntary thing. So it could be as as extensive like what Francine has done in charity. It could be in societies. It could be in clubs, whatsoever. But at the end of the day, there's no KPI or there's no target, there is no grades at the end of the tunnel, put it that way. So it's an opportunity to try things out, try as soon as you can, and then it's voluntary, and it should be in the spirit of volunteering. So if you don't manage to do it, you learn from it, then you improve yourself and you go along. And the key point here is how you develop yourself with these opportunities. And that is something that I feel like if I knew this back when I was in A levels, I think I would have planned things a lot better in that sense. But I picked this up, I kind of saw the significance only towards like my undergraduate days. So this is something I would say, especially for students and also for parents listening in as well. Like, it's good to get kids or students to try things out right now, see what fits for them. If it doesn't work, it's okay, better. You know yourself better. You learn things more about yourself. You know what works for you and what doesn't. And then you can proceed to the next opportunity in that way. Yeah, exactly.
Very true, Vignesh. Very true, Vignesh. I believe Jade has some more stories to actually share with us. Right,
Well,
Jade?
actually, something just came out of my mind, right? Like, I think a lot of people join ECA with the conception that, oh, I'll need to apply for university soon. I want to do medicine, so I need to do voluntary job. Or I want to do accounting. I need to be the president of the math society or accounting society, things like that. So I think it's just important to address that ECA is something you can join to have a bit more experience, give you a bit more exposure before you decide what you want to do for your career pathway. But don't enter it with the intention of, I need the title president for me to get my university application. That's the wrong mindset to have. And that's the last mindset you should have when you sign up for an ECA. Because it's really, stepping go into a new environment, dedicate your time to it voluntarily, not expect anything in return, and something good might come to you. So I think that's just something that I really want to address about joining ECA. Yeah, don't go into it with the intention of I need like at least 3 items for me to be able to get into college or get into university.
Yeah.
I think this is something we same philosophy we apply when we're at work, right? You don't just hold a position for the sake of holding a position, right? You actually have to do something and bring impact, through that position or that opportunity. Completely agree in that sense. Yeah.
I agree. And I think in last podcast, when we talked about stress management, we also say like students these days, like a lot of them, they actually face stress from their peers, So a little bit like tying up with the last podcast was like what Jess and Vignesh shared, that it was completely true that don't let joining ECA as a reason for you to actually, like you just want to add one more line to your CV, but let it be the reason that you want to actually gain more self-development, because you cannot go far by using the energy that you get from your peers. But the energy and the passion shall really come from within, that you want to do this and you actually want to get better for the sake of yourself, but then not because you want people to think that you are better. Because this is very different. Yeah.
I see Rachel unmuting herself, ready to speak.
Hey, you guys are actually concluding what I want to say already, but maybe just want to add on top to what Francine said. As a recruiter also, I think students shouldn't join clubs or join society, number one, because of peer pressure. Everyone is joining the same, let's say, competition to put it into their CV, so I also want to join. And then when I join, I don't find the purpose, I don't find it interesting, and in the end, during an interview, a recruiter or your interviewer will find out, because when they ask you about it, you won't be able to answer properly. Like, what's the contribution here? I'm like, I joined with my friends. Yeah. So you really need to make sure that it's okay that you take your own pace to join different clubs, like what I did back in my university days. Most of my friends are joining this Chinese society clubs, where they go in and then they have different performance and yogas and all those stuff. But I wasn't into that. I was into ASAC. Not too sure if it's still big right now. Not too sure if it's still a big name right now. But why I joined that was...
Still is. Still is.
Oh, okay.
Still is.
There's a lot of new clubs coming out, sprouting here and there, So I joined that with the intention of being able to travel. to go global. Yeah, and then from there, it was someone from there that I had a connection and then got myself an internship from there. And yeah, that's just one thing I wanted to add on top of Francine. To join something that you really are interested in, although you may not, you may be interested in maybe for the start of it only, maybe by the name or by whatever the club is doing, but maybe after you join, you find that this is not really for me. I prefer something that is more technical, or I prefer something that is more easy and more chill. Then I can always just finish it by the end of this event or by the end of this year, and then I join something new.
I think the correct mindset to have, right, when you commit yourself to a certain ECA is you make the most out of it. So
Yep.
you could have, for someone who, example, enjoys playing badminton, you just join badminton club because you get to play badminton every single weekend. That's something you don't get to do at home. Your parents will be like, why aren't you studying? So that could be a good excuse for you to that spurs you on to joining badminton club. But when you're in it, make the most out of it. How can it be different from just playing badminton? Forming that comradeship with your ECA friends, forming that friendship. It's actually not that easy to form a close-knit community. That's one way you can show how you're able to develop that interpersonal skills. Or if you're interested, or if you want to hone your leadership skills, that's also one way to start, right? Because as a leader within the badminton club itself, you can come up with initiatives that can maybe make the badminton club bigger than what it actually is. It can be more than just playing badminton 2 hours a week. You can perhaps, say organize a badminton competition, intra-collegiate badminton competition, and that's one way for you to develop your leadership skills, your event organizing skills, your teamwork, collaboration skills, because you need to bring different people together, different people within the club to organize everything end to end. Attention to detail is very important in this case to make sure that the event goes smoothly. Or say if you need sponsorship for that badminton competition, you'll need your communication skills, pitching skills to get sponsorships from the different parties. Even that confidence, right, to be able to cold message, cold call potential sponsors. That's really one way you can learn. So that the point that I'm trying to bring here really is, regardless which ECA you join, there's a lot more skills, a lot more things that you can learn and you can do beyond just the title of what it is. A badminton club is not just about playing badminton 2 hours a week. A chess club is not just about playing chess 2 hours a week. Or even a volunteering club is not just about teaching kids how to read 1 hour or 2 hours a week. There's a lot more that you can get out of it. And it's really up to you to discover what you can do beyond that general perception that people have.
Yeah. And I think Vignesh had mentioned as well that you shouldn't really do it is not a rule that you should do ECA that is related to your career or to the path that you want to venture into. Just for example, I actually did accounting and finance for my degree, but my ECA has completely zero relevance to my degree because they're all volunteering. And if anyone who's listening to this podcast are worried that what if my employers or people think that the ECA that I joined, they actually couldn't contribute to the career that I want to do, you don't have to worry because I'm going to tell you this. So when I apply for my placement, because I actually did a sandwich year for my degree, which is 3+1 and 1 year is working. So when I applied for the job, I did accounting and finance, right? But the job that I applied was law. It was completely different. So obviously during the interview, when they asked me a lot of the legal stuff, I couldn't answer. I actually did so badly in the interview and I was actually so surprised that I got recruited. But I guess what really made me shine was that during the group project, I somehow can just interact so well with everyone and the teamwork was really there. And I guess it wasn't built overnight, but it was throughout the past few years that I actually really involved myself in ECA. I am trained to actually, work with people in a group and try to convey my thoughts in them in a way that, even they can understand where I am coming from, and as well as I understand where they're coming from. So I think like you don't really have to do something that is related to your career or like to the degree that you want to study, because just like what Jade say, like ECA really has so much more than just what you see on the surface. Yeah.
I'll add on something slightly different here. All right. Another benefit of going through ECA is the network. I think Rachel briefly touched on it, but I'll share an experience from my end, but it's not a direct benefit to me. But the fact is, someone else within my network was able to benefit from this. In my final years of my undergrad, I went for competitions. By the way, competitions are another form of ECA. Going for competitions, taking part, competing, winning a prize whatsoever, any achievements that you can get, that's actually a good indicator of a ECA activity in that sense. So in my final year, when usually final year students tend to get more passive, because it's their final set of exams and projects, but I did the exact opposite. I went for most of the competitions. All right. So the reason being is I wanted to expand my network as much as possible, because you never know. You never know. One of these guys or gals will be a boss in some company somewhere. They could be, the major decision maker in some cooperation somewhere, or what is that, a company somewhere. And it benefits us to have that kind of network, and you start from this kind of activities. So this experience I had was I met this one gentleman from another university in the competition, and both our teams seemed to gel really well, and I think fast forward a few years down the road, after I think when I started my work as an academic, I got this call from another academic from another university, and they said that oh, there's this person looking for a PhD. All right, he applied for a PhD, and so forth. And he was just explaining it to me, who's this person and all that. The name sounded familiar. Then I said, oh, I know this person. Then he said, oh, okay, how is he like and all that. I knew him because we met then. I knew he was a good student, very capable, very knowledgeable. So that networks really help in other opportunities as well. People can vouch for you, because like what Rachel said, like, people see you based on the applications that you have. But, this other additional portions, help, in a way that, it speaks out for you in that sense. So for me, I was like, oh, actually, he's a really good person, really good student, really capable and all that. If anybody, you should take him in, So that was one of the other benefits, for ECA as well in the long term, okay, in the long term. Yeah, but you start from somewhere, exactly.
Yeah, we have to get started somewhere, right? So yeah. So Jade, so you have to get started now, right? So what ECA should a person join, right? And this is something that everyone asks. What ECA should I join after listening from all the inspiring story from every single one of you, right? So yeah, so what to join right now, Jade? What should I join now?
Okay, the simplest advice I can give to anyone is just join something. Okay, some people have the perception, right? Like, I don't know what I'm interested in. I don't know what I'm good in. What can I do? I don't know what I can do. If you're someone in that position, then just join something you can try out just to see if you're interested in it. That's one way for you to do it. That's one way for you to start. Because Vignesh mentioned quite a couple of times since the start of this, right? It's a trial and error process. So it's like the good thing about being a student really is that you can join however many you want, even if you are not sure where your interest or your passion lies. This is one avenue for you to find out. Or if you already know precisely what you want to go into, say you are really passionate about wanting to do medicine, then joining the pre-med society probably makes sense because it will tell you a little bit more and let you learn a bit more about the medical industry, for example. Or if you know for sure that, like post-graduation, if you're a uni student, post-graduation, you want to go into the business world, you want to be a consultant, or you want to do like a management associate program, then maybe joining like a consulting club or joining a business club makes sense, because that's where you can start developing a business acumen, which during the interview really makes you stand out because you're able to talk in these business terms and have that business thinking that will make you shine among your peers. Rachel would know this very, very well, I'm sure. Or, or if you really just want to, for example, perhaps expand your network, you're interested in sports, you want ECA to be an outlet from all the stress that you have from studying, then by all means, join a sports club. Do your running once or twice every week with a group of people. That's one way to bond. That's one way to form a society, form a community. That's one way to have a support group while you're going through your stressful student life. So I think that's really how, like, the simplest advice I can give to someone really is to join something. If you haven't joined anything now, just get started. It really doesn't matter because it really is a trial and error process. Yeah. If anyone has anything to add on, please do.
Okay, I would say that it's good to start planning your career now. You may not know exactly what you're going to go and do when you start working. That's completely fine. But you need to know what kind of person as a professional that you're interested to be in the future. So this is where I think probably, Rachel, please disagree with me if you disagree. Okay, but the clear point here, when you start working, continuous professional development is very important. So this is something that I would say now, because all of us here are working in the working world right now. We know continuous professional development is like the ECA of the working world, quote unquote, you know. So what it means is that it's repeatedly developing your skills, whether is it technically or whether it's in the soft skills department. All right. So you have to start planning at a very young age. I think it's good that you try things out. If it doesn't work, figure it out later. It's completely fine. But you have to start thinking about this at this stage. If you feel like you're missing out on presentation skills, you're not very good at presenting in front of people, maybe try to look for opportunities like that. And, you know, like I said, nobody's going to hold you against it. You know, if you don't succeed, it's okay. You know, you learn from that experience, you know. So that's a good thing to go about. But I have a question for Jade. What if I don't know, I don't like anything that is available? You know, all these societies, I'm not interested. What can I do? Is there anything I can do?
Hello, that's such a simple question. Honestly, okay, if you don't know what you like, okay, no, sorry. If everything that you see is not of interest to you, then, but you have something that you're deeply passionate about, then really just start a club. That's, yeah, because, okay, so I have another story to share actually. I had this like colleague who worked with my company for a while, like an intern who worked in my company for a while. Like he performed okay on the job during the internship, and then when he went back to uni, he decided to start a club because I think during his internship we spoke about his areas of interest, right? And he was like, there are these clubs, but I don't find my values aligned with what these clubs do. I think I can do better, or I think there's some gap within the university community that I can help address. So he went back to the uni. He decided to start a club with the skills that he managed to learn during the internship, like, you know, the stakeholder management skills, the people collaboration skills, things like that. He went back to the uni. He decided to start a club, and he's doing really well now. And you know. And he's able to lead not just running projects. He's able to like lead a group of people to run that club itself. So that's like tremendous personal growth for him. From someone who had no who had no ECAs under his belt, or had very minimal ECAs under his belt, to someone who started a club like that by himself and run a group and lead a group of people to run that club. That's really incredible. And that's something I think anyone can do, as long as you know what you're interested in, you have a vision of what you want to achieve. Yes, you can do that. It's kind of like working, it's kind of like running our own business now that we're adults, right? Like, if you realize there's some shortage in the society, there's a business problem that is unsolved, you come up with a solution, solve it, and that becomes your business. That becomes a solution. That becomes a new offering, something for the group. Or even if it doesn't make money, right? It addresses something within the community, and I think it's something good to have, and it's still value add to the entire community as a whole.
Yeah. Rachel, do you have anything to add, Rachel?
Nothing much. Jay pretty much summarized everything. If you don't really know, if there's no club out there that really fits your value, it is okay to start something. It doesn't need to be a very well-established club, I would say. Sorry, my puppy. I do. I do have a few. I've seen a few candidates who they started their own mini startups. So it might not be it might not be profitable yet, but it's more towards like serving the community. They see a gap in the community. So one thing one of my previous candidates said that was that he's trying to build an app to help individuals in terms of getting to work on time, because he feels like our Malaysian LRT, the buses and everything is very very unpunctual, not punctual. Yeah, so that's one thing where he wanted to try out, and then he's trying to recruit a few people to be in his team. Although this initiative didn't work as well as he planned it to be, so the app didn't work out. But I believe that he actually learned a lot in terms of planning it for it to work. So in the planning process is where like Jade and everyone shared in terms learning leadership, learning how do you plan an event, how do you calculate even your profit and your profit and loss margin, things like that. So that is where it really adds value to yourself, and you know yourself better. You know whether or not you like to do it in the future, whether you want to continue this as your career, or do you not like numbers? I prefer talking to people. That's why I want to be in, let's say, the marketing, mass comm kind of industry. So I kind of ECA really kind of gives you a feel of, it makes you understand yourself more. That's what I feel.
I actually really like this example you brought up, Rachel. So if it works out, it's good for your CVs, right? You have a good story to tell. But even if it does not, you can still have takeaways from it because you learn something from it. You know that this is not an area of interest, and you know somewhere else to find. It gives you another direction for your own personal search, lifelong search. That's the journey anyway.
Correct, and it adds a color to your big piece of, it adds color to your life also, I would say, because you have stories to tell other people now. Although I have this plan, but it didn't work back then, maybe who knows, 10 years down the road or 5 years down the road, you might bump into people who can make this thing work, this plan work, kind of thing. Yeah.
I'm sure our listeners have a lot of stories to share as well on what are the benefits that they have actually gained from joining ECA activity. So if you are listening right now on this podcast, please feel free to comment right below, yeah? Right, if you comment right below, right? We're not getting much comments, right? So it'll be very interesting to hear comments from you guys on what are the experiences that you had on ECA and how it has actually bring values to your life. Right, so I think we are actually reaching the end of our time. We're almost running out of time over here. So any conclusions that we can actually make about this topic that we have today here?
Okay, maybe I'll go first.
Yep, go ahead.
All right, so key point here is looking at, I think organizations generally want to see people willing to improve themselves. And having ECA is one of the opportunities that they can see that, that you're constantly building on something in your soft skills. So regardless of what you pick, you know for a fact that you're building on that. And when you start working, they see that as well. So I'm just trying to link this from the ECA in your studies. And when you start working as well, organizations love people who are constantly improving themselves and willing to do new things, because when they start working, different responsibilities and tasks and activities will take place, and having individuals that take initiative to get involved in this kind of things and have the necessary skills to go about these things is really essential. And where do you start? You start by going and looking at your ECA. All right, and then I think the last point here I would make is that if you already have an idea where you want to be or which profession you're planning to go to, just do a simple thing. Just go to Google, just Google the soft skills typically required for this person in this field. That'll be a good start. If you have no idea where you are going for your ECA, all right, then from there you backtrack, you start back calculating, so-called, and start figuring out what are the activities that you have around you that can get you closer to that skills. So if you need leadership skills, so let's look at your area or your region. What is available? If it's there, take part in it. If it doesn't work out, move on and then find something else, or work on something else that you're interested in. Completely fine in that sense. So I guess for me, my message here is, your professional development. You're starting from this time, looking at how you develop yourself as a professional. Yeah. So that's from me.
And I would like to add on something that ECA, it is not an obligation. It is certainly not a module. It is a life experience. It can be life-changing event. So just do it at your own pace. Eventually, you'll find the things you like, and I'm sure you'll be fine. And if you ever need help, you just comment down below and we will reply.
Yep, that's for sure. That's for sure. So start sharing your experiences and put up your comments, guys. Right, Jade?
Okay, I think for me, I want to highlight the importance of going into ECA with the right mindset, which is to learn and to gain experience. Don't expect anything in return, but be ready to give and to serve. That's when you can get the most out of it. And for you to be able to make sure that you learn as well, right? It's important to also take a step back and reflect on what you have actually experienced from the ECAs. What are your takeaways? It's something very important that people tend to forget because, from joining a club that's totally unrelated to what you do, totally unrelated to your career of choice, there can still be takeaways, transferable skills that you can reflect upon and share some story and illustrate your growth in that specific in those areas. That would be mine.
Thank you, Jade. Rachel?
From my end, my conclusion would be for students out there to really just step out of your comfort zone and try something out, like what Vignesh and everyone has already mentioned. Just try something out. If you don't know where to try, you can just follow your best friend and just try something out, because joining ECA is really the safe. I know some students out there are really scared to make the first step, but being very honest, joining ECA, no matter what club it is the safest place for you to fall and make mistakes as well, for you to better understand yourself. Yeah, it's better to make this kind of mistakes now than later in life where you've already chosen your career path and then you find out it's not for you. Yeah. That's from me.
All right, thank you, everybody. You guys have actually concluded all the points that needs to be concluded today in today's podcast session. Again, thank you very much, especially to Rachel Scully, who actually joined us for this episode of podcast today. We heard a lot from you today. We have actually seen a lot of good things about why students should actually take up ECA now and start improving on the skills required to prepare them for the actual working world. Thank you also to Jade, Francine, and Vignesh. A lot of inspiring story from you guys. So always remember, join something. There's always a place for you to actually start. Just get started, right? Just get started. And if you can't find anything that is relevant to you now, nothing that that interests you right now, find something that has a gap currently in your little world that you have right now. Try to solve it. Find something. There's always something that you need to actually solve. It could be as simple as like Rachel mentioned just now, transportation system. We can always find an avenue to always get a team, right, to actually try to solve some problems that we have around the world. There's actually so many problems in the world. If every single one has to solve a problem, then I think we have a better world ahead of us, right? So thank you very much again. I appreciate your time. I appreciate all your feedbacks and also your sharing of experiences in this podcast. I'm sure those who are listening will actually find it beneficial. So if you like what you hear today, you like what you see today, don't forget to actually give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to also subscribe to the channel to hear more about this kind of podcast in the future. Again, thank you very much again for our panelists Rachel, Jade, Francine, and Vignesh. Thank you very much. Until then, see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.